Hey everybody, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2021 Ford Ranger, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Blue Ox 7-6 coiled electrical cord. Before we take a closer look at our coiled cord, I figured it'd be a good idea just to kind of refresh ourselves on what's actually going to be needed to flat tow our Ranger down the road safely. So there's going to be a total of 5 main components needed to flat tow your Ranger down the road safely. First one's going to be the base plate, and that's going to provide us with a solid and reliable connection point. That way we can hook our tow bar up to it. Tow bar is going to be that second component, and this is going to be the physical link that connects the front of your Ranger to the back of your motorhome. Third main component is going to be safety cables, and these are there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. These are going to keep your truck paired with your motorhome. The fourth main component is going to be tow bar wiring. And what this is going to do is transfer the lighting signals from the back of your coach to the back of your truck, keeping you safe and legal. And the fifth main component is going to be a braking system. All right, and what this is going to do is apply the brakes in your Ranger whenever you hit the brakes in your RV, helping bring you to a more predictable and complete stop. There's also going to be 2 more components that aren't absolutely necessary, but I would highly recommend. One of them is going to be what's called a battery charge line kit. And what that's going to do is more or less trickle charge or maintain your Ranger's battery whenever you're flat towing it behind the motorhome. Because generally speaking, a lot of the braking systems that are used are going to use your truck's battery power to operate. Problem is, unless you stop every now and again and start it up, it's going to drain down the battery, so the charge line will resolve that. Another thing I would highly recommend is what's called a brake light relay. All right, and what that's going to do is let all your signals function properly at the back of your Ranger. And that's because without that, the brake signal will override the turn signal. So let's say if you're at a stoplight, have your left, or approaching a stoplight, you have your left turn signal on, everything's working like it should, but after an allotted amount of time, when you apply the brakes, the brake light is going to overrule the turn signal. So your motorhome will be flashing on the left side, but the truck will just have brake lights. And that relay has got to solve that issue and let people know what your intentions are. So with all that said, let's go ahead and check our cord out. This is going to be a critical component, just as important as any other of those flat tow components that we mentioned. And in a situation you would use this, a lot of times the wiring setups that come for your vehicle are only going to include everything you need on the vehicle. Some of them are not going to come with the coiled cable, and that kind of defeats the purpose. You need a way to transfer those lighting signals from your motorhome to your Ranger. And that's exactly what this is going to do. The current is going to flow through here, move to our connector plug, and send everything to the tail light. So a great way to get the job done. Another situation I can see this being used in is if maybe you already had one and it just got wore out, just quit working on you, or maybe got damaged, something like that. When it makes sense to replace everything, when you can just replace this and kind of get the show on the road again. So a couple solutions there for you. I will say I'm actually pretty impressed with this one. This thing is super thick, feels really good in your hands. The coils, come back pretty quickly. And yeah, so I feel like it should hold up. Pretty good. Since it is coiled, you're going to want to use this with tow bars that do not have channels in them, just like our tow bar here today. The tow bars that have the channels running through the sides, I am going to say you are going to want a straight cable, if that makes sense. That way you can run it through those channels and utilize them. But this is a perfect setup here. And the reason this is coiled is so it stays up nice and tight against everything else here, away from the ground when we're going straight. But on the same note, whenever you make a wide turn or something like that, you're going to need some extra length. And that's exactly what's going to happen. These can stretch out and give you that extra length. When you straighten back out, they're going to come back to how they originally were and stay up off the ground and out of harm's way. So if you just take a look at the ends, it's going to be a 7-way round connector, which will go into the back of your motorhome. Super common type of connector. and the other side is going to have a 6-way round connector, and this is what's going to plug into the front of your Ranger. Again, this is a really common setup here, and it'll work with a lot of different things. I do like how the ends are pretty much completely sealed. Everything's watertight, and so that should do a great job of keeping everything in good shape. You know, a lot of times the #1 killer of these is corrosion, and with everything being tight, it's something you shouldn't really have to worry about. I do suggest, so just to be on the safe side, from time to time, on the parts here that are exposed or that could be exposed whenever you're not using it, moisture and stuff like that could kind of just accumulate around it. So to be on the safe side, you can use some dielectric grease to put on those terminals every now and again, and that'll ensure that they stay more or less in great condition. It's also going to come with the 6-way round connector plug. Now, it's not going to have a bracket or anything with it, but generally speaking, you know, a lot of times base plates will come with them. If not, you can always find a bracket here at eTrailer. But a lot of times too, these kits, some of them don't actually come with this connector. So by picking up this setup, you know you're going to be covered with the connector and the coiled cord. Pretty straightforward. You know, it's a thick plastic housing, so you know, shouldn't have to worry about really anything happening to it. It's going to have a spring-loaded cap there. That way when you're not using it, it'll stay nice and tight. And when you are, there's going to be a catch that's located on the bottom of the cap. That way when you plug this in, it's going to kind of rest on the connector and prevent it from accidentally getting pulled out. So at the end of the day, you know, a really nice coiled cable kit. Everything's thick, well built, and should get the job done for you. Now, as far as the installation goes, you are going to have to hook up your 6-way connector plug, but it's really straightforward and shouldn't take you a whole lot of time. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and do that together now. To begin your installation, we're going to be here at the front of our Ranger, and to get our plug hooked up, you're going to need to have your wiring already routed here towards the front. And regardless on what kit you have, generally speaking, it's going to be the same colors and everything else. What you're going to want to do is take the rubber boot that comes with our plug, slide that over the wiring, just kind of push it out of the way for now, and then you're going to want to split the wires. So carefully cut in between them. Then just pull them apart. Need a few inches to kind of work with there. Then what I like to do, just to have some fresh ends, is just kind of cut maybe like 1/4 inch wiring off. From there, we're going to need to strip back each one of our wires about that length and give them a good twist, so that way we have a nice connection once we put them in the back of our plug. So I'll do that same thing for our 3 remaining wires. Now we can grab our connector plug, and they are going to be labeled. They're a little tricky to see, but this is a good example here. It says GD, so that's going to be ground, so that's going to be our white wire. And what you want to do is back these set screws out enough to get the wire in, but not all the way out, because if you pull them all the way out, they're a little tricky to get started again. With that said, this one here is going to be labeled LT for left turn, so the yellow wire will go to it. This one here is going to be labeled RT for right turn, so the green wire will go to it. And then right here, that one's going to be labeled TM for tail light, so the brown wire will go to it. With that said, we can take the appropriate wires. So we'll start with ground, which is the white one. You're going to slide that in. Take your Phillips head screwdriver and simply just tighten down that set screw. Make sure we get a good bite on it. Then I'm going to do the same thing for our corresponding wires here. So here's what the connector plug looks like once you have the wires hooked up. From there we can just take our rubber boot there, put that over, and mount it up to our bracket. What I like to do is once we have our whole flat toe package installed as a whole, and we know everything's working the way it should, then I can come back here, seal this up with some tape and dielectric grease. That way we don't have to worry about contaminants getting inside. But if there's an issue, then you have to work around that. So that's why I wait till then to do it. I'm going to mount this up to our bracket. A bracket does not come included. A lot of times they'll come with your base plate, which in our case, that's the situation. But if yours does not, you can always grab a variety of different brackets right here at etrailer to mount this up. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Blue Ox 7-6 coiled electrical cord on our 2021 Ford Ranger.